I'm going to show you some different painting techniques. So just using acrylic paint that we've got here already set up, and I'm just going to start off with like a brush, doing some kind of different lines and shapes, bringing in some other colours. Maybe that's a general sort of brushy shape. We've got a thinner brush here, so it's quite nice to vary what you've got. And if you hold the brush really high up like this, then you can get quite a loose line. But if you hold the brush sort of further down, then there's an element of difference in the amount of control that you can have. So just going for that kind of wiggly shapes and wiggly lines. We were doing some other things earlier about like the doodle, the squiggle games and the doodle drawings and the doodling, and how that drawing without any particular intention can be really quite cathartic and quite relieving of emotions and quite energizing. So we've got a whole load of things there. Then we're going to think about maybe using the end of a brush, so we can just dip the paint in and make these dots and building this all over in one section. But however, you know what, I think I'd like to go over here. So I've got sort of a chisel shaped brush here, so we can do little dots, little marks. Maybe something a bit quicker. Maybe going for your finger. I always find paint to be quite cold. You feel like the temperature of that. We can go for, let's get another piece of paper. We can go for some different types of lines and brush strokes. So here we've got sort of a jagged line, crisscross, cross hatching. And then if we've got, like, use the side of a brush to drag quite a lot of water, that'd be quite useful, just to drag the paint across. Going for something where you're blending colours together. So we've got this sort of brown shade, bring in a bit of the red and bringing those two next to each other, and a little bit of water, just to sort of blend that together. So we can have that same sort of idea with layers on top of each other. So doing quite a watery section in blue. That's not blue, Leslie, that is green. Yep, just testing. Aha. And then go sort of over the top with another colour. So now this is the blue one. So just like that can be quite watery. So bring this in. So when you've got two paints that are wet, sort of a wetting, kind of wet into wet technique. So I've got quite a lot of water on there, and that might be quite the effect that you want. But if you want it to be thicker and doing the same sort of wet into wet technique, we're going for that sort of dark turquoisey blue. It's a bit of a thicker paint. And if we were blending in another colour, here we've got a bit of a thicker paint of green, and then I've got a little bit of paint over the top of where I've got the blue, and a little bit onto the other side. So you can keep blending them, keep having that across there. You might like to sort of do things where you're stippling. This is quite a soft brush. You can see that's quite a soft brush. But if you were to choose a brush that was firmer, like this one, and then go for the stippling effect. Then stippling, like I'm just dipping that into the paint, you will get a completely different effect. And so combining those together, the wash, give that a clean as I go along, and then like a drier brush with stippling, combining that together, and then even like using the end of the brush again to like dot into there. Scratching with the end of the brush, like a sgraffito effect. So if you're doing that on a large scale, that can be a really expressive technique. But of course, like, this is just like a taster really of these different things. So, and then maybe I've got a palette knife. So palette knives can be bought from different art shops, or from even like the metal ones from sort of DIY shops. But then the same sort of effect can be produced by using a piece of card or using sort of a firm object like a bit of wood or something like that. You might like how that sort of pans out. And so there we go. So just a few techniques, and it's like to build on what we were doing earlier, like we've got the sort of primary colours and secondary colours all being mixed. So it all feels like these are, I suppose this is more the practical, like the technique side of the art therapy process, where actually I can't kind of say it enough times about how it's not so important about the quality of the artwork, but more about what the expression is and what you're wanting to do and how therapeutic it might be.